Hello and welcome to Business Today. I am Siddharth Zarabi, and with me today, the poster boy of the global vaccine world really, Adar Poonawalla, the Chief Executive Officer of Serum Institute. Adar, welcome to Business Today. Great to be with you at your Mumbai house. And,
pleasure to be here with you, Siddharth.
Thank you very much for making out the time. The reason, viewers, we are here with Adar, he's someone who you see frequently. He's been award winner of the Business Today CEOs awards, and of course someone who is recognized both in India and globally for all that he did when COVID hit the world. And today we want to talk about life after and beyond COVID. Adar, so I'm going to sort of start with the big picture here. Fantastic time at that point of time, huge jump in revenues, and then more or less a normalization that has happened, which is good in a way that nobody wanted to be in a pandemic environment forever. You stepped up at that time, took a big business risk, put in a lot of money. So where does the company really stand today now that that pandemic and all that happened as a result is well and truly behind us?
Well, firstly, it wasn't that fantastic as you put it, because even we went through a lot of challenges as the media was following all the challenges we were going through in, getting raw materials and scaling up and navigating other geopolitical issues. It was a learning curve, so we learned a lot. We became more efficient. We were able to focus on what's important. Going forward after the pandemic, a lot changed. A lot of competition has come in. A lot of people want to make vaccines all over the world. Of course, they won't all succeed because it's a very specialized and difficult activity to execute, even if you do have the technology. The manufacturing skill itself is an art, and that takes years and years of being able to do that. So it's not just having a technological advantage, it's about having to know how the manufacturing really works. So after the pandemic, which suddenly then, and I'm glad that it ended in 2021, there was a lot of stock, equipment and facilities all over the world that were redundant, because everyone, including us, had invested in huge capacities. We had to rejig all those facilities to adapt them now to make our other regular vaccines like malaria, HPV, all our vaccines that we had held up in the pipeline. So COVID wasn't very good for us in that sense, that we had to delay and defer a lot of our pipeline, which of course was the need of the hour. We had to focus all our firepower on making COVID vaccines for the country and for the world. So, life after COVID was also a bit of a challenge, rejigging and getting licensed on these vaccines that we had put on the back burner. Very important vaccines like the malaria vaccine for the continent of Africa, which we launched last year. Yeah. And is saving a lot of children's lives there. The HPV vaccine, which this year we'll give to the government of India and then export, which is to prevent cervical cancer in women. These were all vaccines that we've been working on for 5-6 years, maybe 7 years, in terms of investment and clinical trials and all of that. So it was a relief to get those vaccines out finally, 3 years after COVID. And we've got some other focuses also on mosquito-borne diseases, dengue vaccine, yellow fever vaccine, chikungunya vaccine. So you're going to see that coming out of Serum Institute over the next 2 to 3 years, because with climate change and the way diseases and mosquito populations all over the world are spreading, including a lot of economic development. You see, economic development means you have a lot of construction, potholes and water bodies coming about where these are breeding grounds for mosquitoes, and hence further disease, spread of this kind of disease. So I'm focusing on mosquito-borne diseases and some of these other vaccines to get them out, and we're continuing to expand and trying to look at European and US markets also now. We were traditionally in 170 countries in the developing world countries. So now I'm looking at some products that we can take to the US and Europe. I don't know how that's going to go with the current health minister of the US, Mr. Kennedy, but I think we'll have to convince him to be a little open-minded and flexible to understanding the real power of vaccines, because it's a very important point here I want to make. Vaccines have world over proven themselves to be the most efficient economic tool to prevent disease. Giving a vaccine and preventing a disease, as opposed to hospitalization and burdening the health system and all the other knock-on effects that it has, is something that people need to be convinced on now, especially in the US. In this part of the world, everyone knows the benefits and how vaccines have prevented so many cases and deaths. But you see in the US even right now, you've got outbreaks of measles, diseases which were virtually eradicated in that part of the world, and that's because the vaccination rates have been reduced.
Have you been surprised at the rise of the anti-vaxxer lobby, if I may sort of...
No, not surprising, because during the pandemic also the misinformation and a lot of other things like your reactions and deaths got misconstrued and highlighted, naturally creating doubts in the minds of people who weren't aware of really what's going on, and social media didn't really help at that time. And so now again, educating people and convincing them that vaccines are more or less safe, and of course you get the odd reaction or death, but it's a far less of an issue compared to letting a disease run rampant in a population and not doing anything about it, not taking any preventive measures.
I want to pick this point up because after the pandemic ended and after several years of people having sort of taken your shot, there was a time when a lot of deaths in India, sudden deaths if I may put it that way, somebody in a gym, somebody doing some other kind of activity, and people tried to link it to the after effects. Is there any study that you've seen that can shed sort of light on whether Covishield and any other vaccine in this space actually had a negative impact of the kind that people would?
Well, I mean, generally there's no data to suggest, and we looked at a lot of studies where there was no link established at all between long-term effects of a vaccine. I mean, there have been what they call long COVID, where if you did get the severe disease, you did have issues months later. There have been issues with heart failure or blood clotting or whatever, which unless it happens, if you take a vaccine and something happens to you within the next few days or even a month, then at least one can establish a link. You were perfectly healthy and now look what's happened. But if you're talking about having some issue after a year, there were people who committed suicide. One chap jumped off a building. There were some other issues, and these court cases and things got blamed and tried to link that because I took the vaccine, I did this. I mean, some of them were real rubbish. Some of them, need further investigation, and there are investigations being taken to see, from medical bodies whether there is a link.
But nothing conclusive so
Nothing conclusive so far, and a lot of vaccine companies have a lot of court cases going on there in the courts, but there's been no judgment on proving any link to the side effects and direct any issue. And if there is, then we shall see and go by what the courts say. But at the moment, there's been no definitive conclusion on that.
You touched upon that point, and I want to sort of come back to it. The COVID vaccine saw rapid accelerated approvals. You're moving beyond that. Has the vaccine industry, the overall sort of sector, sort of learnt anything which allows a company like yours to bring to market a vaccine much faster?
Yes, it's a good question. We've suggested a lot of reforms and removals of some certain rules which made it traditionally these were legacy issues and rules which every country has when they're growing, and the health ministry and the government of India has been quite proactive in supporting our industry in trying to fast track and reduce a lot of rules. Now take for example, there was this rule that you had to do a clinical trial only in India to get licensed to be able to sell a vaccine in India. So now there's been a very well thought of relaxation that if, let's say, a company like mine or whomsoever has done a trial of a product in a what they call top approved regulated country like EMEA, UK, or United States of America, the Drug Controller's Office in India has the powers to waive, after looking at your trial data and other things and discussions, to waive a trial in India. So that can save you 2 to 3 years. Because sometimes strategically, because of the disease burden or whatever reason, a company like ours or anyone may do a trial, let's say in Europe or the US or somewhere else. The costs of doing another trial in India and the time is unnecessary and illogical. It makes no scientific rationale. Now, if there is a scientific rationale, then of course the DCGI, the Drug Controller's Office, would choose to do that. So I'll give you a simple example. Our chikungunya vaccine, where we've partnered with a company called Valneva. There is no chikungunya vaccine licensed in India or anywhere for that matter. This is the only company which has a licensed vaccine in Europe and United States. Now they've done all their studies and trials.
And millions suffer from it.
So it would be illogical to waste time and money doing another trial which would just prove the same result in India. So these are the kind of reforms and changes that our country has made, looking at, trying to...
So do your rollout plans for chikungunya or dengue, are they likely to benefit from this new approach that you...
Yes, but dengue, no, because we're doing our trials in India itself all the way, because it's a very important vaccine, and it's our vaccine that we've developed. So the chikungunya one is one partnered with this company called Valneva. And so we're going to use their trial data to convince the drug controllers of India that, look, it's been done in your approved, regulated, top regulated countries, so you should just give a...
Once these vaccines get rolled out, how large is the market in India?
Yeah, so this is very interesting. Normally, I make a decision on making a vaccine which has a global demand and requirement. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense for us to put a few thousand crores of capex and employ people, train people on that technology. Dengue, that way, is not a global requirement, but it's a substantial volume requirement, in South America, Southeast Asia, India. Where you see, you have rice paddies, you have construction, as I said, and these are the areas where you have breeding grounds for mosquitoes. So that makes sense. Now, chikungunya, of course, is not again a vaccine that I think everyone will take. Some vaccines will be travelers' vaccines. So you have the yellow fever shot, people going to Africa. We have the meningitis shot, which people take going for the Hajj pilgrimage, for example. These are mandated vaccines that you have to take if you travel to certain... or under a travel advisory, you get a dengue vaccine shot, a yellow fever shot, and then you're set to go to, say, India or Africa or any of these places.
By when do these vaccines come to the market?
Well, I mean, chikungunya in less than 2 years, and dengue probably 3 years.
Okay.
That's the timeline.
For the millions who suffer from this, I'm sure that's going to be good news. Since you've spoken about that, do you want to tell us more about any new areas that you are, therapeutic areas that you're looking at?
Well, I think vaccines has predominantly been our concentration. We're trying to get a vaccine for TB, which is a big issue. You've got malaria, HIV, and TB as the three global kind of ones. Let's see how that goes. That'll require a lot of investment. We tried to look at other biosimilars and other products which were outside of the vaccine space, but it's just highly competitive, and it needs another skill set, and then you end up fighting with patents and all of that. So we've chosen not to do that and have our own patents, develop our own technology platforms, messenger RNA platforms. So we want to stop relying only on the partnership model that we've been doing at the moment. Tying up with someone, even during the pandemic, we had to tie up with Oxford and AstraZeneca, and it'll be nice to have our own patents, which we have for one or two of our vaccines, like for our pneumonia vaccine, and build on our own capabilities. So that's where I'm focusing.
Before we move on from the vaccine space, could you give a sense to our viewers and readers about the kind of money all of this is taking over a multi-year horizon?
Well, look, the big pharma, you take Pfizer, GSK, Sanofi, for example, if you just zoom out a little bit, their turnover in vaccines goes into $40-50 billion, for example, and ours is only $1 billion. And this is where even I think at Davos last year I had spoken and said that India, if it wants to have and make vaccine companies the level of those, at that level, you need Indian companies to be able to charge reasonable pricing. What's happening is that, yes, we absolutely want to protect the common man from predatory pricing or high prices on healthcare. But if you look at the vaccines today, we're selling them at 50 rupees and 100 rupees. If you want, the GSKs and Sanofi's and Pfizer equivalents to be done in India, you have to relook at that pricing policy. Even in the government business and tenders, you have to give it at a very reasonable price, otherwise, the tenders don't go through. Now, why do I say this? If each drug or vaccine to be developed in India as a made in India vaccine, I need at least $500 million to $1 billion. My turnover is not 1 billion. क्या हम innovate करके कर सकते हैं? If you look at all other industries which have flourished, banking, IT, auto in India, all leaders in the world, they make $1 billion a quarter. The average IT company, you look at the top IT companies, they're making $1 billion a quarter. You can then reinvest in your technology. Now they want to do, whether it's AI or whatever it is, to move with the times and ages. For us to develop and innovate, if we just don't have the revenues and profits, how do we do it? So you look at the largest pharmaceutical companies in India, the generic players. What is their profit and turnover? It's peanuts compared to its 1/10 or even lower than that if you look at, comparing them and their market cap.
Global players.
The global players. So if that's where we want to go and make in India, develop in India, create in India, then that's what we need to relook at. It's one of the factors. See, we have the talent, we have the capability, and we're very efficient. That's our advantage. But we don't have the kind of capital and revenue that those companies have. We don't have access to the risk capital that American companies have. Why are there all these big $100-200 trillion market cap tech companies and other companies in the US, and how do those startups? Appetite for risk capital, which is there in US, we don't have here. People are not willing to back an entrepreneur with billions of dollars in India compared to how you...
Won't the public markets back you?
Yes, but only to a certain extent, to a certain valuation. As I said, the funds and the ecosystem the US has, we don't have that.
So you don't see a possibility of a listing here? Or?
No, for me, me specifically, let's see in the future if it makes sense, if there's any need to. If we're going in for some major acquisition or something. Otherwise, what are we going to do with the capital? The point is that we need policies here which allow these companies in this sector to thrive. Like you have seen in the IT, banking and auto sector, there's no price regulation, there's no price on a shoe or a bike. Why should there be a price cap on my vaccine? Yeah, fair enough. Keep it at a reasonable level.
The government programs can perhaps be subsidized by the government.
Yes, where they could pay a better price. Now I give you a simple example. You go on the roadside shoe. A roadside shoe costs how much? 500 rupees? Which you'll probably use for a year or something. If I'm giving you a vaccine that's protecting you for at least 10 years, and we're talking that even 200 rupees is too much. Remember, there was a price controversy during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
कि अरे 200 और 300 रुपया भी बहुत हो गया.
But imagine what it was protecting you against.
Even whatever it was protecting. See, even if you take a family of 4 and you have to take 2 shots, compared to whatever else you're spending on today, look at the consumer spending. You're spending on makeup brands, you're spending on beauty, you're spending on lifestyle, you're spending on travel, you're spending on experiences. But when it comes to protecting yourself and your health, what is the issue in spending the right amount? Not too much, I agree.
Right amount, absolutely.
What if it was 100 rupees more, 200 rupees more? How much controversy?
Who should determine that right amount?
The government. Because ultimately the government has to balance 2 things. If I were to wear the hat of the government, I have to make sure that my people are not exploited in terms of pricing for healthcare and basic needs. But at the same time, I have to make sure that the industries also thrive, who can create more employment and innovation.
And flow back
if you crush the industries and don't let them grow, then you can't get that innovation that you want. heavens won't fall. We'll continue staggering like this at this level only. You see, so that balance needs to be struck.
Is that sense of driving you to venture into newer areas like
yes,
Bollywood production?
No,
or
I don't expect to make money in Bollywood that much at all. I think the other businesses that we're into, of course, as I realize that in a country like ours and the globe where you have to give vaccines at a reasonable price, this is not something where I want to make undue profits, because ultimately I want to reach and make our vaccines as affordable as possible. My earlier statement was as a general statement, for the industry and for more companies to thrive and make innovation. For us, being a privately listed company and we run it in a semi-philanthropic way, I can increase my prices tomorrow morning if I want to, but we have chosen not to. And that's why we said we can always make money in other areas, real estate and hotels, financial services. Bollywood, as you said, has been a strategic decision which we can discuss later, why and what. But I don't expect that to be adding, more than even 1% turnover in terms of our group turnover and our overall things.
How's it shaped up? 6 months to the announcement?
Yeah. Well, it's going very well. As I told you, Karan and I have known each other for a very long time, and we have a great equation. And his partner and CEO Apurva as well, who runs the day to day. We have plans to have our own distribution, our own music label, build our own IP. Now these things will create value over time and a better valuation, whether this lists or doesn't list after 8-10 years, if we need to or not, or even to bring in an investor or whatever. So we'll see how that goes. I think the idea is to keep telling stories, and you must have seen the recent film Kesari 2, which was on the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. These true stories and parts of history, or even bringing current issues to light. I love listening to these stories and creating these stories and recreating these moments. And Bollywood does it very.
Story pitches?
Well, no, I mean not so much. I think selectively, and when I have a little more time, I'll get a little more into it and maybe create some of our own things that we want to create. But I think we did it for other strategic reasons also, because it's a soft power. It opens a lot of other doors and opportunities and connects you with people that you normally would not be connected to. So we'll see how that goes.
Bollywood's gone through a bit of a crisis, if one may put it that way, over the past few years in terms of audience connect. People give it various reasons, a new audience, a OTT audience, maybe lack of innovative scripts. You agree with that sense that Bollywood is going through maybe the equivalent of a midlife crisis?
Well, no, I'll tell you what's happening. Yeah, it's whenever there's a technological change coming, or the way in which you see or do things, or you consume a product, there's a transition period. Now, what is that transition here right now? OTT you mentioned, and other digital ways of consuming content. So, whilst yes, you've seen footfalls fall in the traditional areas in theaters, that is being made up, very rapidly on OTT and your satellite and other penetration methods. Today now with the data and what the Indian telecom companies are doing is phenomenal, with the virtually free access to data and very cheap data. You are able to consume this kind of content even on your screen. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised later if you end up seeing a film completely and you start watching that in the rural parts and other parts where you don't have theaters and screens on your phone. So of course you've got your iPads or your tablets and your TV screens at home, you can watch it, but it'll eventually, I think, even penetrate furthermore to your mobile devices. And as we add more screens, as we penetrate rural parts of India, I mean, look, I don't know what the statistic was, but I think barely 20% of the penetration is there in this industry in India, in terms of screens and access to screens, right? So you've got a huge population of India, which is, of course, thanks to Modi ji's leadership and all the reforms in our country. They are becoming wealthier, they're able to consume more. I wouldn't be surprised in 10 years' time if, the number of screens, whether it's a big screen or a small screen, is, quadrupled. And that's where the opportunity is. That's where you'll get more revenues, and all the rest of it will follow, and that whole ecosystem will take time to come. So we're in that transition. Now, some films, if they do well, it's up to the marketing, it's the viewership, word of mouth. Now, for example, Kesari 2 had a very strong word of mouth promotion that happened organically and by other means. So I think that's doing well with that. So
that's interesting.
It depends what again it depends on the theme. For a few years there's a very patriotic. You had a lot of films on war and then you've got on other issues, or then there's romance, and then there's a time where there's only these action hero films do very, very, very well, like Shah Rukh's Pathan and Jawan and that sort of thing. So, I'm still learning and trying to understand what works and doesn't work. Most people in the industry I've talked to, even they say they don't know कि ये film चलेगी कि नहीं. So in terms of strike rate to any other business that I've operated, when you make a business plan for something or a strategy, okay, 70% it'll work, 80%. Chances of you knowing if a film will work or not is, I would say, less than, 20 to 30%. I mean, you have a fair idea.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, viewers, because in the pharma industry, it is said that out of a drug pipeline of 10, maybe there's only one that is a multi-billion-dollar drug, and many others don't perform, and then you look at average.
No, so in COVID in 2020, late 2020, I was 80% sure that Covishield will do a wonderful job and work once I saw the data. And then there was here you see the film, you take it through like a focus group or something, and you still have maybe 20 or 30% chance of knowing what's going to happen. So that's the difference.
That's an interesting take. We spend a lot of time on the vaccine part of your work and Dharma, which perhaps seems to be a passion project, fairly so.
You can say that.
But give us a sense as we come to the final part of our conversation. What is your group going to look like, let's say 5 to 10 years from now, in terms of the business verticals that you are there, and what are your ambitions that you set for yourself?
No, I think with the country growing in the direction that it's growing, the aspirations of 1.5 billion people, both professionally and personally, I think there's tremendous opportunity to help them, support them. You don't have a customer base like this that is being educated and empowered anywhere else in the world. And that's partly why we looked at real estate and financial services, which is what every human being virtually, or company, or entrepreneur, business is going to need. So that's why we went into those areas. I think we'll continue in these areas, with Serum being the primary focus. We even had an insurance company which recently we've tied up with Babaji Ramdev to invest off, because we want to focus on our NBFC. We want to take all our capital and put it in our NBFC to grow that. Okay. We're at a 35,000 crore AUM. We're going to grow at 30-40% a year. So that's going to need capital. We're going to probably go for $1 billion cap raise at the end of this year in a QIP, or take a financial investor into the company, all primary, no secondary. Because finance companies need a lot of capital to grow. We're 4 times levered to our net worth. We want to maintain that. So as we grow, we'll have to keep bringing in a little bit more capital. So that's where we are looking at in the next 5 years, in financial services, real estate, and a few hotels. We've got the Ritz-Carlton in Pune. We may expand on that a little bit. And primarily on Serum, I think.
Just to follow up on real estate, we've seen a lot of established old business groups kind of do a deep dive into both the commercial and the residential segment. Your own assessment of the kind of real estate evolution that India is likely to see beyond the metros, particularly because the metros are choked, and that's a fact that everyone
the FSI rules have been relaxed also, and I think you're going to see a lot of high rises coming now, which in a way is good, because you can make things a bit neater and have other whether it's waste management, whether it's infrastructure, car parking, all that can be streamlined a little bit. Look at our city with all the roads and infrastructure we've got on the coastal road. So I think with more roads and other infrastructure growing, you will see other parts of the country getting developed also much faster. But
Which
for
parts-
us,
which parts do
for
you
example, no, I'm saying the outside of the cities. I'm saying, but I'm saying for us, at least as a group, we're not experts into real estate. We just partner with a few friends and trusted partners, and in the key good locations where we know it's a very low level of risk of going wrong. If you construct something, you'll definitely sell it at a good price range. So we're looking at that in a very modest way. It's not going to be a huge vertical of ours, maybe a 10% on our group sort of activities.
That's my very last question, and this is the broader context, and the reason I ask you is because you meet so many people globally. 3-4 years back, China +1, India being seen as an alternative supply chain destination, and with what has happened due to the Trump tariffs, as they are called, we now have Apple saying that India will become its primary manufacturing sort of center. What would you, as an industry leader, want the policy setup, the establishment, both at states and the center, to do to really capture this moment and opportunity that seems to have come up?
See, India has been for a long time a preferred destination. You've heard and seen that in Davos and many other places. Purely and mainly for a few reasons. Of course, the size of the market, the growing aspirations and income levels as they rise of the people here, creating a very good, promising future market also, and generally decent, good policies with a government which is ready to help and proactively help, whether it's on land or investments and tax and other certainties. I think the two things which are paramount for India to maintain and continue and perhaps improve upon is to continue assuring, which it's doing, stability in terms of its policies, which it shouldn't change. So I'm not saying that they're not doing that. I'm just saying that these are the things that we would want to continue happening. Stability of policies and the rules that are there, so that when an investor comes in with a long-term view, whether it's on taxation or investment or foreign investment, what you're allowed to do, not to do, that should remain fairly stable. We shouldn't keep changing that all the time. And if we do, there should be a lot of logic to doing that, taking into account the global financial system and investor community. And second, we have managed to do, and that credit again goes to Modi ji and his entire government, of maintaining peace and neutrality.
Good words there. Stay the course. That really is the message when it comes to the broader macro political economy situation. Adar, I wish you all the very best as you continue to stay the course on your core business and venture and double down on newer areas of growth. Thank you very much for your time. Pleasure. With that, it's a wrap on this conversation. We'll see you again. Until then, goodbye.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.